Hi, and welcome to SteamLUG Cast, Season 2, Episode 20. We're recording this on the 3rd of October 2014. My name is Cheese, and with me I have DerRidda.
Hello!
And Nemoder.
Hi there.
How you going, guys?
Not too bad.
Good, and you?
Yeah, I'm great. I haven't gone to bed yet, so it's good. Typical cast weekend for me.
Isn't that your normal mode? You don't sleep a lot on weekends?
Yeah, unfortunately. But, what have you been playing lately, DerRidda?
If any one of you has me in their friends list, you might have noticed I have been stuck in the Wasteland 2, for over 80 hours and just powered through it. It is my first Kickstarter that I pledged for, and it is everything I had hoped for. Still has a few bugs, falls off a bit at the end, but it's a damn good game and it's well worth the money, so I can only recommend that to every RPG fan out there. No matter if you like the classic Fallout or have never played them, or even the original Wasteland, which you can play and get on Linux in DOSBox, if that's what you want. Yeah, comes highly recommended.
Are they doing any post-release development, like to address some of those bugs, or maybe address some of the balancing at the end game?
Yes, there was already a couple of, at least one day zero patch was out. So if you get the box copy, you are instantly downloading stuff. And one additional patch, and there's more to come. Like, they have significantly reduced the weapon jamming, which was a bit ridiculous in the beginning. It was fun when the enemy did it, especially when he was coming close to one with a shotgun and oh no, he's going to go down now, and then it makes click on him. But like 90% you were the one suffering instead of the enemy.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is still some fixes coming. You don't have to expect any content because they just... I've also played P on the idea of DLC. They even have like a joke icon in the main menu that says Red Boots DLC, only $49.99, and when you click it, it says, just kidding, do you really think we would do DLC?
Ha!
Nice.
So, yeah. Don't expect new content, but there's enough content in it already. From the get-go, this game sets up a scenario where you can basically only go to one of two places in the very beginning, so that soon there's bifurcation, which I have heard can be avoided, but you have to already know what's happening to do that, so there's at least 3 playthroughs worth through it in there, if you're that kind of person that just replays games all the time.
Who has time to do that?
Not this game, not to the extent I've already played it, no. I've already played Dota 2 with a new update out, which is quite interesting. We will talk about that a bit later. I've played lots of Strife, it has finally grown on me. And it's an exciting little MOBA, even though it's simplified. So, again, if you want to like MOBAs but couldn't so far, this is the one to try out. Also, Tropico 5 now works for me because they fixed that SSE3 issue with older AMD CPUs. And it's a damn near perfect port, I must say, for the first thing they released. Seemed like that SSE3 issue was the only thing there. And it works flawlessly.
And you've been playing that too, Nemoder.
Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with it.
I would definitely say it's worth a Salamander has asked that. I have got it discounted on Humble a bit because I didn't have that much money at the end of last month. And I'm happy with it. They will put a lot of DLC in it though. They are balls deep into the DLC game. They did that with the last game, they will do it with this one.
But even standalone, it's still a really complete game. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm having fun. I'm playing the campaign because it's kinda interesting. You have like 2 islands you build up and you follow different missions. It's like you have to export this much or get the President of the United States to be on your side by impressing him. Interesting, but it teaches the game well enough so you can get into endless games later on, which is these city builders are good for anyway. And I've picked up the Half-Life 2 episodes 1 and 2 when they were on sale and played through them, and I don't remember episode 2 being as bad as it actually is. I don't know, what do you guys think about episode 1?
I think they're both not too bad.
I thought they were okay. I still like the original Half-Life stuff better, so I'm a bit jaded there.
Yeah, episode 1 felt like a It introduced nothing new, and it felt like just a complete NPC escort thing all through it. I wasn't impressed with it.
Look, I know that lots of people don't agree with this perspective, but I find Alex to not be a compelling character. I find her to be a bit disappointing, really, because she's presented as being a strong person, but really she's this sycophantic, fawning a mess, and I don't know, it just gets to me. I don't like it. Yeah, as been said, she's a pretty shallow character.
Yes, so far it's getting more interesting with episode 2, but only for a brief period of time. But in episode 1 she's like, oh, let me have a remark about that. Nope, wasn't interesting. I really wasn't all that into it. Episode 2 is much better, but, well, it's still worth playing the complete package, Half-Life 2 and both the episodes.
I enjoyed playing them, though. You know, I don't think they were bad.
Yeah, do you play them on the harder difficulties?
I can't remember, to be honest. It's been a while. I'm gonna go back and play them through with Rift support, probably over the next couple of months.
Yeah, do that with that Half-Life VR mod. I think it only works on Windows, but it just looks so
I
amazing.
don't have Windows.
Yeah, I don't know how it works in Wine. If you don't use a Razor Hydra, Wine should be fine.
Yeah.
But it introduces a lot of interesting new mechanics. But you should totally get a Razor Hydra for that alone if you have money to burn, which nobody has, so forget about it. And next on the list is Counter-Strike Global Offensive, which is finally out, and I've played a lot of it competitively with John Drinkwater and other people in the community like Export. And whenever Export joined, we were losing horribly because he's way too high ranked, and we got matched with really good teams and just got our faces kicked in, so they came out our backsides, which was not fun at all. So if you play that game in competitive matchmaking, choose people that are as good as you, because otherwise you will correct it upwards and it will not be fun. And last on the list is Borderlands 2, which I've played for a couple of hours, also with some people in the community like Bean and John and Hero, which is kind of fun, but they all know the game too well and they just rush ahead, and I stand there like the derpy little guy I am.
I started going back and playing single player just because of that. I was like, I barely know this game, I don't have any good gear, and I can't hardly hurt any enemies, so it's not as fun.
So, yeah. Nemoder, what have you been playing?
Well, played a lot of Tropico 5. I really do enjoy the game. You can see that they're obviously set up for DLC, but it's still a pretty fun game. And I tried it multiplayer, and I played with a Windows user, and after like half an hour the game got out of sync, but it didn't crash or anything. It just like we both had resources in the same locations and weird things like that, but otherwise it ran fine, so it was a lot of fun.
Did you both get to win?
No, he won because it tracks like who loses more than who wins, and so it's just weird, but anyway, we got to finish it. And I played some Borderlands 2, which is, it's pretty awesome to have that quality game out on Linux, and I think other people can talk about it more that are more familiar with it. And we did our Guns of Icarus event, and that was a lot of fun. We had some really good matches. I even played that's been about it for me. Developer game with Howard a couple days ago, and got to talk to him a little bit. And I played some nostalgic Descent 1 just because I love that game. But
oh man, I love that game too. Which maps did you play? Or did you play the campaign?
No, I just played through some single player. I didn't play multiplayer, but I might get into that again.
Yeah, nice. And that was in Rebirth, yeah?
Yeah, it was Rebirth. And I just noticed a couple years ago they released the map editor. Somebody ported it to SDL, and that just really blew me away. I love that.
That's nice.
So, Cheese, what have you been up to? What have you been playing?
Not a lot, really. I got access to the Chasm Alpha, which is a game that I backed on Kickstarter. And I had planned to just see whether or not it worked, and how well it worked on Linux. It's using FNA, which is Flibit's monogame fork. And I kind of, like I said, I only planned to just fire it up and see if it worked. But 4 hours later, I'd finished all of the alpha content and and was hungry for more. So I think it was good. It's the first game that I've played in a while that made me want to take notes. So I had a notepad with me while I was playing and making my own map annotations and things. So it was cool. For anybody who's waiting on it, It looks like it's gonna be worth the wait. I really haven't, really don't feel like I've been engaged by a game that much. Something that wasn't an adventure game. I also found time to play Guns of Icarus online a couple of times with the people practicing during the week. That's been fun. And one evening I got to sit down and play some Necrodancer.
You tried Necrodancer co-op locally, you said?
Oh yeah. Mim and I we sat down and had a co-op game, and it's interesting. Like it's not split screens, so you both can only move a certain distance apart from each other, which really changes. You've just got to be a little bit more aware of different kinds of stuff, but it's good.
How does the death mechanic work when you're playing co-op?
If one partner dies, but the other partner gets to the exit, then the other partner gets to spawn on the next level. So it's fairly forgiving.
So it's like one of these games that gets easy on co-op, would you say? At least on that front.
I honestly don't know. I didn't feel like it was easier. I felt a little bit like I was less in control, and that makes, because you're making so many tactical decisions very reflexively and trying to do them very quickly. Having a new uncertain element does kind of make it a bit harder, but maybe getting used to it would make it a bit easier. Oh, and playing with someone who'd never played before meant that I'm obviously losing my combo very frequently, which changes the way that the game plays.
You broke your rhythm, man.
Yeah, it's good. I do suggest, if anybody's looking at checking out co-op mode in Crypt of the Necrodancer, do not, under any circumstances, use the Bard. It's a mistake. The Bard character changes the game so that you don't have to move on the beat. But yeah, no, it makes the game more freeform. You move when you want to, and enemies move when you do. So essentially, as far as the beat mechanic goes, it's like a beat only happens when you move. And of course, when two players are moving, the beats happen twice as fast, and that means you take damage from enemies twice as fast, or faster than you're expecting. Lots and lots of deaths when we tried that.
That's funny.
But yeah, no, it's
To be frank, this class doesn't sound all that fun anyway. It kind of breaks the mechanics of the game intentionally.
Yeah, I thought it was a mistake when they added it in, and I kind of went, well, this completely, as you say, undermines the identity that the game has. Like, it gets rid of the key selling point. But on the other hand, I think maybe it does make the game accessible to some people who might otherwise not get into it. And from that perspective, for those sorts of people, I guess it's good. But I found the Bard easier to stream with, just so I can, pick my own rhythm and not have to worry about having my talking rhythm upset my movement rhythm and stuff.
You just need to learn to rap better.
Yeah.
You are right to rap.
Apparently. So, moving on to community stuff. Our past events included Frozen Synapse, No More Room in Hell, Planetary Annihilation, and Orbital Gear. Did any of you guys happen to make those?
I was around for No More Room in Hell, and we died a lot. Because there were a lot of new people. But it was fun nevertheless.
Awesome. How many did you have?
I think we had the server for most of the time, like 8 people is the maximum, and there was always at least one person waiting for somebody to drop out. So yeah, around 8 plus people most of the time.
That's not bad. I unfortunately, I managed to catch the Orbital Gear one. I was really hoping to make Planetary Annihilation, but yeah, Orbital Gear was fun. We played on Space Pope, got a server up and running for the event. So we all played on a SteamLUG server, and we had, I don't know, we had like a dozen people or something, I think, for that one.
Nice. I was disappointed. I missed both of them, and I really wanted to play the Planetary Annihilation, but I just couldn't schedule it.
Yeah, I was kind of sick and needed to recuperate, and I just didn't have enough rest and couldn't get up. Can you hear all those violins playing for me? But yeah, did you make it to Orbital Gear Nemoder? I can't remember.
No, I missed that one too. I missed both of them.
Oh, we had a good turnout. For a smaller game. And people had fun, so it was good.
Cool.
Yeah. On the horizon, we've got Borderlands 2 up after the show. Crusader Kings 2 tomorrow. It's currently got a free weekend going on, and I think there's a sale at the moment, so if anybody's interested, go and check it out. And the rest of the October event schedule is to be confirmed, but I think there are a lot of fairly obvious titles that we'll be seeing. You guys got any thoughts on that?
It should be fairly obvious, like Tropico 5 and CSGO will be definitely in it. So, yeah, be prepared for those.
I haven't picked up CSGO yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Be nice to maybe give Interstellar Marines another go now that it's had a bit of an update. Apparently improves performance on Linux.
Yeah, this is going to be Shoottober.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that, just by virtue of the releases that came out recently and what just had updates. But I guess Tropico 5 and Crusader Kings 2 will make it for a nice change on that, so it's not completely Shoottober.
Yeah.
That'll balance it out for sure.
But that's still cool. And of course, we'll be having our regular Guns of Icarus practice events for anybody who's keen to join those.
Which is scheduled slightly earlier now.
Yeah.
Start them a couple hours earlier.
But yeah, I just already said what our upcoming events are. I'm not tired at all, I promise.
No, absolutely not. Maybe you tell us about other community stuff, because you have been doing something.
Oh yeah. We've been playing stacking for Game Club over the past couple of weeks. We've got our final session this weekend. And when we do a Double Fine game for Game Club, we like to commemorate it and do something special. So we do like a live voice interview with the lead developer of whatever game it is we're playing. And I got to chat with Lee Petty, who was the project lead for stacking, about about the game, about its development, its history and stuff, and some of the insights that you don't get to hear. That originally it was planned to be a like structured around Russian mythology and stuff, and we get to see some concept art that had never been shown before, and talk about other projects and stuff. So it was really cool. I just published this evening a transcript of the interview. If anybody is interested in checking that out. What were you saying, Nemoder?
Oh, just that it really struck me as a hugely original game. It's like to take that idea and run with it the way they did is just something that you hardly ever see in games anymore.
Yeah. There were just a whole bunch of really interesting ideas and concepts floating around in that game. I think I didn't get a chance to ask last week, but it sounds like there are a phenomenal number of lines of dialogue in the game. Like there's all this situational stuff that I didn't clue into when I'd been playing, which is like if you go back to areas that you've already visited, all the people's dialogue shifts to match the current state of the world. Because in the world you affect some change as the story progresses, and the kind of situation that drives you through the story changes and shifts, and so
it's got this huge achievement system, so it pays to go back and revisit a lot of that.
Right, and you get that reward for doing the completionist stuff as well. And that was something else we touched on. Was like Lee was talking about how when he plays adventure games, he doesn't like to feel stuck, and so part of what he wanted to do was to have this range of challenges so that you can find something that intuitively works for you, and if all you want to do is get through the story, it's fairly easy to just plow through and do one solution and move on. But if you really want to dig into it and enjoy doing the puzzles, then you can make the game much longer by focusing on that stuff.
That makes me grind my teeth a bit. I hate these statements with a passion, especially they happen a lot to stealth games.
You don't like optional content?
No, I don't. This. Oh, you can play the game like this if you want to something which should actually be the core mechanic, like what they did with stealth games recently, where, oh yeah, stealth is totally in, but if you want to go in guns blazing, you can totally do that, and that pretty much weakens the game. Oh, I think this is a shoddy idea.
I don't know. I feel like stacking is stronger for this, and definitely more accessible to more people.
Yeah, it's not a shortcut. It doesn't, cut out a lot of the story or anything. It's just neat little things you can do on the side.
Yeah, it's like alternative solutions to the puzzles, and it gives you like a little special notice if you get them all.
Yeah, that's okay, but it sounded like the stuff they pull off because we don't actually want to challenge people because if you remember, this was pretty much a console-focused game when it came out.
It was, yeah.
And it is kind of thing that goes on there to reach as many people as possible, and it only makes the game worse most of the time.
Yeah, but in this case, I think it works well. It doesn't feel too gratuitous, or rather, it feels like doing the additional solutions is gratuitous. So you only chase it if if that's something that you want to do, if you want to get that 100% thing.
And I'm not into chasing achievements, and I felt that was really grindy, so I didn't do it. But I felt that the option, having it there and not really interfering, was pretty good the way they did it.
Yeah. We also talked about plans for a Lee says that he's written the sequel and done design work for the sequel, which hasn't been made. So it was I think fun for him to share some ideas and stuff with people.
So I guess there's been some talk about the new Steam curation system, and we've had a few people post their own lists, I guess, and we're trying to discuss what we should do for SteamLUG in a whole.
Yeah, it was my hope that the curation system for groups would allow group administrators to highlight the content and reviews and recommendations that group members had been making, because it feels, if you're running a community group, that's something really worthwhile that you want to do. But you pretty much got to recommend it as the group rather than on behalf of the group members.
Yeah, this is my concern as well, because I know for a fact that in many respects me and Cheese have wildly different tastes, so what one recommends the other would probably warn against in some cases.
Yeah.
So I don't think, I mean, if you just want to general, if we set the goal, we point out good Linux ports, we could do that, I guess, as a group. But if you want a personal curation by a person that has an opinion about the games, this doesn't work as well in the group, because there's not one opinion that is reflected. It's different, wildly varying opinions in that group.
Yeah. We've had suggestions that maybe we could curate stuff that we're holding events for and make those games more discoverable to people in the community.
But sometimes we do these on suggestions, and maybe nobody that actually is an admin and could do that would recommend that game.
It is very interesting topic. My hope with it was that we would be able to go, hey, there are people who write interesting stuff and have interesting opinions within the community, and being able to highlight those. I still want to be able to do that in some fashion.
To point out what Lord Jason said, he said about suggesting games that are well supported and denouncing those that are poorly supported. Curation doesn't give you the ability to warn against anything. It's just a positive system only. You can only point out good stuff. Some people do lists where they recommend stuff and then warn against it, so to make kind of game the system a bit to point out negatives, but it doesn't work that way. The mechanics aren't there for that.
And I don't know whether that's necessarily going to result in positive outcomes either. I think it's better to ignore than to put negative light on stuff.
Yeah, if something isn't effectively misleading, you should put energy into the negatives and put it into the positives and point out what's good.
Yeah.
And the rest is free time. If you don't have anything more to point out, that's good.
But there certainly are lots of options if we do pursue this. But if people have got ideas or thoughts that they want to throw at us, definitely chime in the discussion there. Maybe what we should do is highlight, have a curator of the week or a curator of the month or something, and just work through people within the community who are actively maintaining interesting lists. I don't know.
Well, anyway.
But we also on this is group side of things, we've added a trading and giveaway subforum. A few people were keen to give away a lot of stuff, and so making somewhere for that to be a bit more discoverable for people will hopefully encourage that a bit more and make it a bit more pleasant experience.
Yeah, I mean it's good for that. Definitely worth it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go to a Reddit place to get a giveaway.
It's nice that people within the community are sort of looking out for each other. Most of the times that I see people sharing games, it's in here in Mumble or it's over in our IRC channel. It doesn't happen as much in the group, um, in the group forums and that. But when it does, I think it's good to have a place for that.
Tell me about Freedom Cheese.
Freedom
cheese. Sounds tasty.
Freedom cheese.
That sounds like an American product coming out right around like the early 2000s when some foreign country didn't go with their war policies.
You will eat freedom cheese.
So on the third Saturday of September, all around the world, people celebrate Software Freedom Day, and I had the pleasure of being involved with a local one. This is our 10th event, I think, so we've been doing it for 9 years. We held 2 in 1 year. But the idea is that it's meant to be like this grassroots celebration of free software. And the way that we run things here is we have a sort of an expo where we get people in the local community to just come along, demonstrate or talk about things that they do, either in their personal or professional lives, that involves free software. And that may or may not be on Linux. But it's really nice to bring people together and so check out what people are doing and stuff. It's fun. Have either of you guys ever been involved in something like that?
Nope.
No, I wanted to, but there's just really nothing in my area that I wouldn't have to drive very, very far to attend something like that.
And I have like no real-world contacts with other enthusiastic Linux users. You guys are the only people.
It is nice to get together in person with people. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you then.
No, I was only whining, so but we are kind of dead-ending this discussion, so maybe move on.
Let's.
So, Steam and Valve news. A big Steam Discovery update came out. It made the store all blue and hopefully gives you more stuff that is interesting to you while making it everything more discoverable and jeez, rescue me here. I haven't actually looked in that much into this update.
Basically, Steam blew itself.
Yeah, it's funny, when it launched, a lot of people were grumpy, and I wanted to be able to make the joke of, like Steam turned blue and all the Steam users turned blue. But, it seems to have been growing on people. I mean, I guess the major feature, the major 2 features from this update are the curator feature, which we mentioned just earlier, and the discovery queue. Nemoder, you said you had a bit of a poke around with the queue. You want to talk about that?
It's not too bad. I mean, it's there's no replacement for getting recommendations from people so obviously it's not going to help there too much. But if you're just kind of bored and looking at what might be kind of up your alley, then it's a good way to discover new titles you might not have heard about.
I'm a bit miffed at the discovery queue because it just looks like the greenlight queue now for games, pointing out stuff I have no interest in. At least this time everything, which is very good to point out, through the entire store is filtered by platform. If you have noticed that, you will basically never see a Windows game except for banner ads on the front page.
Yeah, I think the redesign is pretty nice. Being able to sort really easily by multiplayer, co-op, or whatever, it helps quite a bit.
I feel like I miss some of the old search options, like being able to filter by developer and that sort of stuff, rather than doing a text search. As if you've got a developer who's got a name that's really generic and happens to be in the name for a whole bunch of games, then that's going to bring up a bunch of stuff that you don't care about.
And you can't still go through a game and then click on the developer name?
You can, but that's a bit more convoluted than using the search used to be.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just different and it takes some getting used to.
So as far as curation goes, have either of you guys had a chance to look at the curator stuff?
It seemed pretty basic.
The consumer side or the actual curation side for curators?
Actually, I'm interested in chatting about both.
I mean, it's just basically just a flat list of games that you recommend. I mean, that's not much more complicated than that.
Yeah, so far it doesn't seem all that valuable for Linux users because I haven't seen any good lists for that yet, so there might actually be something we could hear.
It's interesting I think the way that it exposes itself to users isn't in the curator page where you view a list of things that this person recommends, unless that's something that you're specifically going to. But Generally, I find the way that it rears its head mostly to me is when I look at something on the store, and it has been recommended by a curator that I follow, that becomes very visible and that shows up quite prominently on the store page.
Yeah, that could be pretty helpful.
Well, at the moment
Yeah.
it is. I'm following nobody, and it's just Total Biscuit quotes on every game that he recommended. He's the person that shows up most of the time.
I made one, and I just am highlighting everything that I've written a review on, or written an article on, or done an interview about, and yeah, I got a few people following that, and I had a couple of people say that it's been a nice way to kind of keep track of stuff, so that's nice. But yeah, for the people actually doing the curation, I don't feel like there's a lot of value in it aside from an opportunity to potentially highlight reviews or content that you've written or produced.
Yeah, this is. And it doesn't seem to be all that worthwhile anyway. People don't seem to be clicking on these full review links that much. Like, again, Total Biscuit said that he has on his latest Shadows of Mordor video like 400,000 views, and only like a couple of thousand came from Steam curators, even though they are pretty much in sync of when they came out. This was like the first video where I can sync that up.
It's tricky as well in that because it lends itself towards people who have existing content and stuff. It really only seems to let people who were already influential be influential. It doesn't feel like it gives people outside of those spheres extra voice.
Yeah, but I think that's where I think that's working as intended. It's more like pointing these people out to people who haven't previously seen them. So, who just went onto the Steam store and were absolutely clueless about what's good and what's not. If I'm already looking up the stuff I'm interested in, I'm already looking for curation from sources I trust. This is not a specifically worthwhile update for me. But the people who just go on Steam, and there's a lot of those, and just look through new releases and stuff and want to figure out what's good and what's not. It's giving them further information, giving them the tools to decide what their money should be spent on.
Well, that's providing that the curators themselves are worth giving attention to. I mean, most of the ones that I've come across aren't.
What makes you say that?
They don't seem to be insightful or have any valuable recommendations.
Like, I don't know. I could see it like there's somebody you follow quite a bit, like one of the big names in YouTube or whatever, and maybe they talked about a game and you couldn't remember, then it would be pretty helpful to just go there and say, oh yeah, there's one of these games that he listed. Anyway, I guess Steam Music is out of beta.
Oh
Yeah.
is it? Hasn't it been for a while? When was that?
No, it's only it's been since the last cast.
Oh yeah, it was just open to everybody who opted into the beta client for quite a while.
Right.
That seems kind of silly for desktop use, but if you're building a Steam box or Steam OS, I think that's pretty nice to have as a media feature.
Yeah, especially now that they integrated game soundtracks from stuff you've purchased, so developers can set it up that you automatically get that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Valve made a bunch of their soundtracks free and put a bunch of their games on sale to help promote that.
Yeah, I noticed that when I bought episodes 1 and 2, so that was also working as intended.
But yeah, not necessarily of interest to people who are after a desktop experience. As far as Steam client updates go, I haven't paid a lot of attention, but they started a new client beta today, and I spotted something in the changelogs which stood out to me, and that was a Linux-specific fix that changes Steam Cloud file paths to preserve the case instead of automatically converting them to lowercase. And the implications of that are possibly explain a lot of problems.
I didn't have any problems with that because I wasn't really relying on cloud save, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, it's funny because I had recently been trying to work with a developer to identify some Steam Cloud problems that they were having, and we're going through their configuration, and we're looking at the game, and everything seemed to be right, and we just couldn't work out why, and it was specifically a case issue. We couldn't work out why it was happening. But then seeing this today certainly shed some light on that.
Yeah, I imagine most of the games that make use of the cloud stuff have either worked around that bug or they didn't run into it because they weren't using case-specific stuff.
Yeah, and it's just a case of, I don't know, everyone should use lowercase with no spaces, and then everything is fine. It doesn't matter, you don't need to think about it.
Yeah.
And the Saxxies have just finished as well. Are you guys familiar with that?
They are video awards for stuff done in Source Filmmaker I never pay attention to, so tell me about it.
So it started off as like a TF2 thing, and I can't remember, that may even have been before Source Filmmaker was available, and it was during the replay system.
Yeah, that was definitely the case.
But yeah, this year they opened it up to more, more Valve properties, I guess. So there were a couple of entries for, Portal and Dota 2 and stuff. And yeah, the idea is that people make short films in Source Filmmaker, submit them, they get voted on, there are some finalists, and then there's a winner.
Cool.
The winner this year was a piece called Animator versus Animation, I think.
What property was it based on?
It's Team Fortress. In the nominees, there were only 3 out of 16 that weren't TF2, you know.
So are those filmmaker tools native, or is that Windows only?
No, it's Windows only, which is sad.
So moving on.
Yeah, but it's a thing that Valve does, and I'm kind of hoping that they'll bring Linux communities in on that stuff.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
So tell us about Oculus.
My DK2 arrived.
You son of a...
And then it sat in a box for a week before I had time to unpack it and look at it. And there's no Linux SDK yet. Again, for talking about things with not much Linux support.
Oh, man.
I was able to get it up and running in TF2 though, which is interesting. It took a lot of fit-assing around though. I kind of am not really impressed with the experience that I've had so far with the DK2.
Why is that?
Just because A, there's a whole bunch of messing around, as I just mentioned, and B, it mounts as a portrait display rather than a landscape display, which results in if it's I haven't managed to find a way to get it to sync properly. It needs to run at 75 Hz, otherwise you get weird tearing, and because it's actually a portrait screen. The tearing doesn't run across the screen horizontally; it runs across the screen vertically, and that's I don't know. It's just really, really weird. Possibly because it's something that I'm not used to. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing for me at the moment is trying to work out the sync issue and make that behave. But OpenHMD already has Linux support for the Rift DK2, which is cool. The pentile display is, I don't know. I don't feel like it makes the pixels any less visible. But it certainly does get rid of the straight lines, you know.
Cool.
But yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like they've made a bunch of mistakes, things that I wouldn't have done. I don't like the new structure of the drivers, and they certainly they've got an open source portion now and a closed source portion, or sorry, a portion that has source available and a portion that doesn't have source available. Whereas before it was all available. And that's kind of disappointing. The external motion capture camera plugs in ages away from that headset. It just feels like it plugs in at the wrong end of the cable. I've got to run it down under my desk when I don't want to put it there. I want to put it somewhere else. But overall, the cable layout, at least on the headset's a lot nicer. It runs over the back now. The control box has been gotten rid of, and all of that functionality is now inside the unit itself. It weighs about the same amount as the DK1. I really couldn't feel much difference between them. It's very difficult to tell how bad the latency is with the tearing that I get. That really interferes with the sense of responsiveness that you get out of head tracking. I, you know, just because of that, the DK1 feels a lot stronger on that front to me.
The camera head tracking, because it's not inside out, it's outside in.
Right.
Does it even work when you turn around completely if you were standing on a treadmill or use some other kind of physical device that makes you turn around to play your stuff?
No idea. Like I say, the SDK doesn't support Linux, and this motion tracking camera stuff doesn't work in TF2 on Linux, so I haven't had a chance to try it. I've literally spent 5 minutes playing and maybe an hour dicking around with settings trying to make it behave, and that's all the time I've had for it.
Yeah, I've watched some really awesome videos lately with people playing Half-Life 2 VR mod with Oculus Rift and Razer Hydra, which is just insane looking. But that sadly only works on Windows.
Yeah, I saw that a while back. I can't remember. I think we might have mentioned it on a previous cast, but yeah, that particular demo was hugely impressive.
Yeah, I could. There are some videos out there, and there's insane stuff like you have like a Rayman like unlimbed hand in the room, and it still looks amazing. They have fixed all the gun models to line up the sights, so you use iron sights. It's impressive as hell, and they've really done something with the UI, so you don't have a permanent classically displayed UI, but you have it on your hand. You turn your hand upside, and yeah, you can read your health and energy, and on the weapon side you can read
most
the
of the weapons
ammo.
have the ammo, yeah.
Yeah, and even they made like for the revolver to reload it, you don't just press the reload button, you flip it to the side, flip it up so the bullets fall out, and
Yeah.
you use your other Razer device to fill it up and then flip it closed again, and the same for all the other weapons. The magazine drops free, but you then use your other Razer to go to your weapon and reload it in that motion. It looks insanely cool.
Yeah, no, it's a really impressive demo that they've got there.
I want that in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have Windows installed at all, but if I had to do that, I hate to say this on this podcast, but this would be a thing. If I got this now, I would be sitting in Windows and playing it because of how awesomely cool that looks.
Well, also on the Oculus front, with the DK2 now available and them, by the looks of things, breaking backwards compatibility, they've released the schematics and firmware sources for the DK1. They're up on GitHub now, which is kind of a surprising move.
Why not?
The licenses are pretty friendly. Schematics are CC BY, and the firmware is using simplified BSD license.
I'm not that surprised by it. While Facebook is an awful company, they are not so awful about their software usually.
Yeah, no, they've got a lot of open source stuff going on, but yeah, I guess I just wasn't expecting it. I didn't, I kind of imagined that all of the early prototype stuff and the early development kit stuff would just be lost to time, that it would be, just ignored and everybody would focus on the current thing. But to see this stuff released for, the community and the industry to examine and learn from, I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, I'm personally currently looking at the Galaxy VR because that seems to be easy to afford, otherwise useful because you just plug your phone into it. And I don't know if that is even made to work with standard PCs, but it looks like it could be the best way into consumer grade VR at the moment.
I don't know. Google Cardboard seems like a way to go. Is that what they call it? They call it Cardboard?
I have actually only heard about that in comments about the Galaxy VR. I completely missed it otherwise.
Oh, they gave them all out to some people at some convention or conference or something. I was kind of tempted to build one, see how it looks. But yeah, AMD have put out a survey asking for thoughts and feedback on the drivers. I don't know if they are specifically expecting to hear from Linux users, but no reason to not.
I absolutely expect them to be not expecting any Linux users, because they absolutely have worded it in a way that reflects none of the concerns the Linux users of their hardware have. And it's just a PR marketing bullshit statement. The survey is hardly worth your time on the amount of how the questions are asked, what questions are asked, and how few there are.
It's only 5 or something.
Yeah, I don't think this is useful at all, and not directed at us.
You have the ability to put in any additional comments as a text box, so if anybody does want to throw feedback at them, that might be a way to do so.
Yeah, and that gets... all of it gets read naturally? Probably not.
I don't know.
Yeah, I also don't know, so you might just give your feedback in relation to the Linux driver, and you dutifully mention that in the comments, and nobody reads the comment, and you're distorting the picture for everybody else, because this probably only concerns the Windows drivers.
It's kind of good, if people do have concerns and they want to share them, if they're only expecting Windows responses, for them to get a bit of perspective there would be kind of neat.
Let's talk about games.
Games.
Yeah.
So, Counter-Strike Go.
It's out. It's buggy, but it mostly works. And
So, what are the biggest problems?
there are some lighting issues, so when you're not under direct light source, or any prop that isn't under a direct light source, they all get black textures like there's zero lighting on them, but it only happens in places. But on some maps, it's most of the maps, because it's indoor a lot.
Is that a driver issue? Like, is it?
No, it's just a
happen
general
everything?
issue with the game.
Oh, no, that's too bad. Is it pretty stable though? Not many crashes?
Yeah, it doesn't really crash much. It had some stupid issues in the beginning, like they forgot again that different locales exist and that they use decimal points. They use commas for decimal points, so we had that issue all over again, like every second Linux release, but Valve should have known about that beforehand.
Kind of surprised to see that there hasn't been any kind of announcement for this, like not even on the blog.
Yeah, they just recently added the Linux icon to the store. I mean, maybe they don't call it a beta, but they might be waiting for it to be a bit more stable before they talk about this a lot.
Yeah, maybe.
And Borderlands 2 is out, which I just got a pop-up for our event because it was scheduled a little early.
Yes, it is out. It is a quite good port. It had like one crash issue in the beginning, which has been since solved. It's made by Aspire, or however they want to be pronounced.
It seems pretty solid.
But it has one awful issue, which I hate. And many other people hate. You can't rebind the control keys.
Oh.
And it has crouch by default on C, and I feel like a caveman trying to crouch with C.
Yeah. I feel like the whole game was really geared for console controller play, which is too bad for a shooter, but it's, it is what it is.
It's a good port of Borderlands 2, as Borderlands 2 was on Windows and Mac.
That's all you can really ask for.
Doesn't make the game in any way different. Yeah. And I hope that would never happen, that they actually change a game by porting it. That would be awful.
Yeah.
Well, unless we got awesome things that other platforms didn't
We
have.
actually do get an awesome thing other platforms have to pay for. Borderlands 1 doesn't exist on Linux, but Borderlands 2 has a reward. When they find save games for Borderlands 1, you get some bonus stuff.
Well, that's
and that instantly unlocks for you on Linux, because there's no official way to play Borderlands 1 on Linux. And Aspire said they asked Gearbox about that, and they said yes, which is cool, I think.
Nice. So, it was a big Dota 2 update.
Damn big Dota 2 update, indeed. It changed a lot of balancing on the heroes, on the game itself. It tweaked the map, changed the meta a lot, altered the courier. There is a lot that happened. It introduced a new rune, a bounty rune that will always spawn at the 2-minute mark, which is quite important, so you actually have to check both rune spots all the time now, and it's good for your couriers. If you're into that game, you see a lot of stuff that's insane that has changed. Not really insane, but grave and important, and it changes the gameplay a lot. Some characters have been extremely rare.
Well, it's good that they're still willing to do that.
Yes, it's definitely cool. Like, This is what happens after every international, I guess. After some time they change it a lot, and the metagame for next international will be completely different. Like this year they banned Lycan, the werewolf-like character, all the time with the first ban they had. They banned him. And if you didn't ban him, if the other team picked him, you were probably F'd in the A. Because he was so broken, and that character got mightily changed now otherwise. So it's probably over with that guy always being banned. First time they can ban. And some characters were changed.
So there's stuff that's in the game when you play normally that's not allowed in tournaments? Is that what you're saying?
No, there is, in tournaments, there is a system where each team can pick from the hero pool and ban. And that character can no longer be picked by either side. And we pretty much start out with a ban and pick.
Oh, I see.
And that guy was always the first one to go. Because both teams get first bans before anyone gets to pick, that guy was always banned by either the first team's or the second team's ban.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's hard to know, like, you know, when they release a new hero, how it's going to affect the game, and it just takes time and waiting for players to, I don't know if exploit is the right word.
Public players will hate some of the changes in this update, like Ricky,
sure.
the guy that's permanently invisible, that was his ultimate, now gets to be permanently invisible at level 1. And because publics can't deal with invisibility, which is actually easy to conquer, they will probably hate that character by now. I've played with him directly after the update, and I just nuked. After I got a hang of the changes, I just left and right, because nobody was countering invisibility that well.
Yeah.
But yeah. Tropico 5 has also been announced. Now officially it has been out. We have talked about it last cast, but they started up the propaganda machine. And what's also important is that it has now fixed its triple SE3 issue that prevented people on older AMD CPUs mostly from playing it. So if you have that CPU, now you can go ahead, buy it, and play it.
Nice.
And there's also a nice trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a bigger game. You're not going to be able to run it on something too ancient, but as long as you got a decent video card, you should be okay.
You know, I went to the Steam community hub for it, and the first thing that came up was this piece of artwork for the game, which was condescending Wonka saying, "Tell me more about how Tropico 5's hardware requirements are unfair because it doesn't run on your ancient computer."
Yeah. If you got a built-in Intel card from 5 generations ago, yeah, you're gonna have some problems with pretty much any game.
Yeah.
I remember back when Deus Ex 2 came out, somebody was writing a reader's mail to a PC gamer complaining about how it didn't work on his GeForce 2, which was already ancient at the time. And they just completely threw him under the bus by saying, "How does this not come on floppy disk?" and other things. So yeah, if you play games on PC, you need to upgrade regularly. Which doesn't mean every year, but every couple of years you have to do an upgrade. This is how this works. Thank you for your attention. Moving on.
Jeez, you need to upgrade your hardware.
I'm doing alright. Actually, my most of my stuff is quite old now. I think aside from graphics card, most of what I'm running at the moment is 5 years old.
Yeah, it's pushing it.
My stuff is ancient. I'm on a Phantom 2, but it's on an AM2 Plus socket, so I'm still working DDR2 here. And when I build my next PC next year, I will have skipped DDR3 in my desktop completely.
And that's pretty much the situation I'm in. I'm on the cusp of upgrading, but I want to sort of see what things like Star Citizen require before I start forking out for hardware.
So we also got Interstellar Marines. I have not really looked into that, but we've had some community members say that it was pretty good and got a nice update with co-op play, I guess.
Yeah, it's had some performance updates apparently as well, which I've heard people talking about. But I don't play it myself either, so I can't really comment too much on that one.
The only Linux-specific thing I read here is updated build tools to speed up Linux builds, so I don't think that's performance-related, but that's rather...
Yeah, maybe I grabbed the wrong changelog.
Unless performance is general, like all over the place, it doesn't look like it's specifically...
Well, it's a Unity game, so just by the fact of using a new Unity engine is going to help a lot with Linux users.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
And I know that game suffered from the mouse issues quite a bit, but I
Yeah.
think it's moved up to 4.5.2 now as well.
Yeah, I'm interested in that game, but I'm not going to buy any more early access games, so I will wait till this is completely out.
Fair enough. Corbin was asking if it was Unity, and yeah, it's definitely a Unity game.
Yeah. Moving on to some exciting stuff. There's a new Civilization Beyond Earth trailer. Exciting!
Civ 5 in space! But hey, it actually looks like it'll be a decent game.
Have you had a chance to watch the trailer?
I haven't seen the new one, but I saw some of the older ones, and it definitely looks pretty cool.
It's pretty long and talks about like just the general structure of some of the more unique mechanics in the game. So it talks about confirms that there are 8 different factions, that there's some kind of ecosystem at play that you've got to work with or around or against, and your actions against some will, affect the way that the others behave, which is interesting. There are these situational affinities. They're not faction specific, but they give you buffs or abilities to do different things or get different units or that sort of stuff, and that's kind of interesting to sort of see. There's apparently like quest chains. I haven't quite worked out the kind of role that they play, but apparently they can increase or decrease the stuff that you get from your affinities, which is interesting as well. And there are 5 possible victory conditions, 3 of which are affinity related and 2 of which are generic. They also touch a little bit on the tech web. So rather than going with a tech tree in Beyond Earth, they're going with a sort of more web approach where something just kind of spreads out from the middle, rather than, because history that the Civilization franchise is typically based on. I mean, we know the linear path that things have taken, and so having a tree as we're used to sort of makes a bit more sense. But for something that's more open-ended and represents more kind of futuristic concepts, I think their web motif is an interesting one for them to pursue. But if you want to avoid spoilers, don't watch the trailer because it tells you what those victory conditions are.
I think the 3 affinity-related ones have been talked about a lot previously, and I don't know how spoiler-rich they are, because that's like the first thing I heard about that game, these 3 victory conditions.
I hadn't heard of them at all until this afternoon, and I was like, oh, I would have liked to have just discovered that by playing.
I think they are very evident so far by how the game is structured.
I don't know. The 2 non-affinity related ones feel obvious, but the others I wasn't really expecting.
Tell me about it. I have no idea. I've been following that game a lot. Actually, not at all.
I didn't really want to go too much into spoilers, because like I said, I would have avoided knowing if I can, but I'll totally chat about it after the cast.
Is that due out later this year or next year or when?
I don't know. There's no date on Linux release. Sorry, it's due out this month, October 24th. But there's no word on the time frame for the Linux release of that, so that's kind of disappointing. Hopefully we'll see that soon, but I don't think we'll see it same day, which is sad. Dolphins are crying everywhere.
So what is Satellite Rain?
It's kind of this spiritual successor to the original Syndicate.
Oh.
And the developers have just released a pre-alpha gameplay footage talking about some of the agents that they've got there and how some of the mechanics and stuff work. It's shaping up to be pretty nice. I backed this one on Kickstarter and am looking very much forward to getting my hands on something. Did you ever play the original Syndicate?
I did not, but I remember hearing quite a bit about it.
Yeah, it had a sequel called Syndicate Wars, which just didn't really capture the vibrancy and I don't know, stealth aspects of the first one, I guess. If you want to consider them stealth aspects, I don't know. The second one was just so bland and so grey, and I don't know. It didn't really grab me. But this seems to have more of the soul of the original one, and certainly nothing like that weird thing that stole its name that was released recently.
No dubstep?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Because that's all I remember of that Syndicate remake. Or reimagining, or however you want to call that shooter they did. It's dubstep.
Yeah, that's one from a couple of years ago, yeah?
Last year even, I think.
Or last year, right? I don't know, I didn't look at it. I was like, well, it's a shooter, it's not a tactical, real-time strategy with squad-based thing going on. I just like, yeah, it's boring. I don't even want to consider it part of the franchise. But yeah, so if anybody was into Syndicate or is thinks that kind of weird dystopian corporate agents thing is exciting, then totally.
Then he can totally go to New York or any other place in the United States. I'm sorry.
There aren't as many cyborgs in New York, though.
Do you know?
Wow.
Dun dun dun. So, Stronghold 3 is out. It uses Eon, which means it's a game that's badly rated in any regard, on a technology that makes it even worse, at least a bit. Can I say that, or am I being unfair here?
Have you played it, or do you know people that have had problems
Well,
with it?
you go onto Steam and see user reviews are mostly negative with 939 reviews, and let's see, 640 of them are negative, so like 2/3 think it's poop. And
Yeah, I think that's about the game rather than the port, though.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I said a generally poorly rated game, ported using bad technology. So
Well, I just
even
curious.
if it wasn't Eon, even if it was a native port, I would still probably say it's not worth buying because history is already spoken. The jury was out, came back unanimously. This is not a good game.
Well, that's too bad. I am curious
know.
though about the Eon tech, and if it was just not well done in Witcher, if the actual technology is bad, then it would be interesting to know people that have played the game. But I don't know anybody who has.
I've seen a few comments from people saying that it's fairly solid and stuff, and I know that there are people out there who enjoy the game as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's not a shooter, it's not a action game, so I imagine the frame rate issues.
Yeah.
Not be as
But
good.
if you are going to buy a city builder, at the time there is definitely a better option on Linux. I mean, it's a different setting.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's nothing that gives that setting and that style though. I've never played 3, but I was really into the first Stronghold game.
Yeah, the first one was actually good, but since then everybody has been disappointed about the sequels. As it seems like the very newest ones might be good again, but like between 1 and the very latest one, it all seems to be garbage. That's what I've heard over all the years.
And speaking of building games, we didn't have it in the show notes, but City Skyline is in the works from Paradox, and that looks to be a really, really nice SimCity clone.
That it does. We've talked about that before, I think, when they announced it freshly.
Oh, okay.
Next on the list, there is a trailer of Natural Selection 2 Combat, which was previously a mod a few servers were running, and now it's just going to be a standalone game.
Huh.
I can't tell you much about it. Do we even know if that's going to be out on Linux?
Yeah, apparently it is. And it was announced to be a standalone game, I don't know, 3-4 months ago, I think. We mentioned it on a previous cast at some point.
It's hard to tell from the trailer that it's any different than regular Natural Selection, but
It isn't really, not by any means.
yeah, that's weird.
It has some interface changes to accommodate the new gameplay style, but it doesn't even do away with the structures completely. I'm not really sure why you make that mod into a standalone game, because it already worked perfectly fine as a mod.
I don't think it has the RTS elements. Like, I don't think you have a
Okay.
commander in it.
Yes, it's about shooty killing each other or bitey killing each other, depending on which faction you are in.
I wonder if the new team that's working on Natural Selection 2 is involved with that at all.
The community development team.
Yeah.
Would be surprised if they didn't keep the engines in sync.
Yeah. So there's been a new Team Fortress 2 update?
Yeah, just a minor one, but accompanying it is a new comic installment for people who are interested in that. Sometimes you can find hints to upcoming updates in there, and there's some stuff to do with space that might tie in with the asteroid map and game mode that's in the beta at the moment. So that's cool, and if anyone is into the comics, then it will be the same kind of raucous, amusing fun that, or raucously amusing fun that we're used to. I had a good giggle earlier, and there's some origin stuff for the sniper in there. And lots of soldier. Soldier's always good value. TF2, hats and comics.
Yep. And new Humble Bundle out for PC and Android. I don't know how many of those are Linux titles, are there?
I think all of them are, aren't they? Or most of them?
All of them are, some aren't on Steam. That's about the only thing you have to watch out for.
Yeah. So, this was the first time that the Blackwell series of adventure games has found its way onto Linux. And there's a neat article on it which has some Q&A with some developers and stuff over on Gaming on Linux if anyone's interested in checking that out.
Are they good?
I've heard good things about them. I haven't played them myself. I think I'm probably going to buy them separately outside of a bundle, just to give more money to the developers.
So, what's new in crowdfunding?
Yeah, I mean, I have been spending money I don't have and backing a couple of campaigns, so I threw a couple down in the list here. The first one that caught my eye a little while back was Duke Gabrowski, Mighty Swashbuckler, which is a point-and-click adventure. It's meant to be all piratey and stuff, but instead of the main character being some Guybrush Threepwood clone, it's this big dumb guy. And at first I had alarm bells ringing. The idea is that you play this guy, he's meant to be captaining the ship, but his crew doesn't respect him, and they tell him he's got to go out and prove that he's a swashbuckler, and that he can make it with the ladies, as it were. And the game, it turns out, is meant to be about overcoming peer pressure and stuff, and realizing that you don't need to do what other people tell you and stuff.
So it's just like Guns of Icarus.
So if I hadn't read the update where they kind of clarified that it wasn't Leisure Suit Larry with a pirate theme, I probably wouldn't have gotten on it. But so if anybody's aware of that and is interested in checking it out and is concerned by that aspect, go and read update 2 and have a bit more awareness of what they're trying to do there. But that's got a bunch of ex-LucasArts people behind it. So there's Bill Tiller is doing art stuff. Dave Grossman joined recently. He used to work at Telltale as well as LucasArts. And those two names are pretty big to have on board. It's going to be fairly small scale. I think it's about to cross its funding goals. It's a pretty safe bet if anyone wants to get in on it. It looks like it'll be fun. I know that Dave's a pretty good writer. He's a pretty funny guy. It should be amusing. And another one that I also backed recently was Battle Chef Brigade. Any of you guys heard of that?
Nope.
Well, it's Fantasy Iron Chef meets Ghibli.
Meets what?
Like Studio Ghibli, the animator or animation studio.
Oh, those.
Yeah. And so it's like there's this cooking game where you've got to use like skills and powers and things to make a dish, but then you also got to run outside and kill monsters to get ingredients to make in your cooking thing. It looks bizarre and awesome, and it's already way over its goal with only a few days worth of age behind it. I think it looks neat. Linux support from the base. That's what everyone looks for, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, way back in Season 1, Episode 3 of SteamLUG Cast, we had mentioned a platformer called Tesla Breaks the World, which about a week ago, I think, was finally launched on Steam, so it's nice to see. And as I mentioned earlier, I've had a chance to play the Chasm Alpha, which was made available to certain tiers of Kickstarter backers on that one. So if anyone has been following that, expect to see more soon. I think we're allowed to stream. I might even stream some of it down the track. So if anybody is keen to check it out, then it should be cool. Sweet. Well, this has been another episode of SteamLUG Cast. Thank you very much for listening in, and thank you to DerRidda and Nemoder for joining us as well. It's been fun. Hope you guys are ready to play some Borderlands 2.
Sounds good.
Yay. See ya, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye!
Well, I think we're about half an hour past our start time for Borderlands 2.